Designing a website for yourself can seem like this huge, overwhelming thing. There's so many things to it and a lot of technical stuff too, and a lot to think about. So in today's video, I want to break it down to make the whole process so much easier for you and go through the 5 key steps you need to go through to design your own website. Step number 1 is collecting your content. So when I say the content, that isn't just the copy and visuals, but it's also working out the purpose of your website. What is your website for? What is the main goal of your website? So first of all, ask yourself, why do you need a website in the first place? So what is the purpose of it? What does it do outside of all your other social media and ways that you communicate and connect with people? Are people coming to your site to get more details? Are people coming to your site so that they can check out your portfolio or buy something from you? Or are there other reasons they're coming to your site? Really work out the purpose of having that site. It can be just simply to have credibility as well, but you have to define that. What is that purpose to your site? Because then you'll be able to tailor your content to make sure it fits that purpose. And then next, along with that, is the goal of your site. So what are you trying to achieve through the website? What is that primary goal that you want people to do when they go to your website? Is it that you want them to sign up for your newsletter? Is it that you want them to make a call with you or fill in a contact form? What is that main goal that you're trying to get people towards when they land on your site? Whether they get to your site from a blog post or someone else's link to your about page, when they land on your site, what are you hoping that they're going to do? And then you can tailor the way you design your site around trying to get them to reach that goal. And then the actual content. So this is working out all the copy you're going to be using and then all the visuals. So the graphics, your logo, all the branding elements, any photography or illustration, basically all that content that you're going to be using on your website. Now you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot to think about. How am I meant to write my whole copy before I've even done anything else? And yes, when it comes to copy and design, sometimes there can be a little bit of toing and froing and going back and forth, and you can't just do one before the other. But if you can at least get a good solid start to it, that's going to make it so much easier to design your site. You can always tweak it and make little changes as you go along, but you need a starting point and you need some content to get you going, because then you'll be able to work out where things can go, and then you'll also be able to decide if something isn't working or needs tweaking. And you can also work out the hierarchy, such as what is most important, what do people need to see most clearly, and then what kind of information is less important. Then you can really work out how you want to map out your site with the content that you've got. And you're also going to be able to make sure that your design actually suits the content and everything works well together. And if you're going to be having a blog on your website, it's also really handy if you can have some example blog posts, because then it's going to make designing a blog so much easier if you know the kind of content you're going to be using, making sure that the images are going to fit, the right kind of sizing for featured images, that you're laying out the text in a way that's going to flow really nicely. You consider and design subheaders and quotes or anything else that you might typically use in a blog post. Now, step number 2 is choosing your tech, the bit that people get really overwhelmed with. The first thing you need to decide is the platform you want to use. Do you want to use something like Squarespace or WordPress? And don't just go off what you hear other people saying. Decide what is best for you. It's all about your own personal needs, because for some people, something like Squarespace, it's going to be the best thing for them because they'll be able to handle it themselves. They probably don't know a lot about code, but they want a site that still looks beautiful. They can design and manage all on their own, and so that suits them well. But for other people, maybe they want some more advanced features and think something like Squarespace just doesn't handle that. Or maybe they want more space and they want to be able to host their own files and have all those more complicated features. And so WordPress is going to be more ideal for them because it's going to be able to do what they want it to do. So work out what it is you want to achieve, and also your skill level, and whether you want to manage your site yourself or whether you're willing to have someone else help you out. And then it'd be so much easier to decide what the best platform for you is going to be. Then once you know that, you'll know whether you need to then buy hosting. Things like Squarespace, they actually host your website for you, so you don't need to buy hosting separately. But if you're going to use something like WordPress, you need to get a host. And when it comes to trying to find the perfect host, make sure that you find something that is friendly to your platform. So if you're using WordPress, something that's WordPress friendly, so that updates and installing WordPress is super easy and you're going to get support when things are a struggle or go wrong, and something that is going to have the capacity for the kind of traffic you're going to get to your site. Sometimes something local can be good for speed And also personal recommendations. Ask people that you trust what kind of host they're using and whether they've had a good experience with them. Is the host really good when things go wrong? Have they got the support? Have they got forums? Have they been reliable? Or are there constant crashes? How good is their host and would they recommend them? Getting a personal recommendation is the best way to choose a good host for you. And then next is the domain name. So if you haven't already snapped up a domain name because you're super eager, then be sure to get that. You may be able to get in a bundle with your hosting, but if you want to buy it separately, you can also buy it separately. My personal recommendations are GoDaddy for when it comes to domain names, and when it comes to hosting, things like a DreamHost, SiteGround, or Flywheel. They're my personal recommendations, but do ask around and find what is best for you. I'll be sure to link those ones below if you want to check any of them out. And then the final piece of the tech puzzle is choosing a theme. So once you know the platform, then you want to choose a theme that you can use on your site. When it comes to choosing a theme, you want something that looks beautiful, but also has the capabilities and functionality you want, because you've got to think about it as the basis for your site. It's going to be the structure for your design. You'll be able to tweak things and change things, but it is going to be the starting point. So you want something that's going to suit what you want. Now, if you're feeling completely overwhelmed by what all this hosting, domain name, and all this stuff even means, the way I like to describe it to people in a real simple way is the domain name is your address. So think about your house, your postal address, where you go to get there. That's how you get there, the address, the location for getting there. Then your host is like the land. That's where you're going to build your house. And of course, the house is your website. So if you find some of these terms confusing, that's the way I like to put it to make it really clear about what those things are. Step number 3 is getting all your inspiration together. Start looking at other websites that inspire you. Go back to your brand board and start drawing inspiration from that and how you can pull that into your website. Start collecting inspiration for how you can tackle different functionality. For example, if you're going to have a gallery, how do other people do galleries? What styles of galleries inspire you that you might like to try for your own site, or maybe portfolios? Start looking around at how other people tackle those things and see what inspires you that you can bring to your own site. Now, once you've got all those things together, step 4 is creating the wireframe. So before we get into the fun stuff of design, you need to work out the actual structure. So over here, this is what a wireframe looks like. So basically, it's just that real bare bones of the site of where everything is going to be positioned. Usually the way a wireframe is done is squares with an X inside means that's where an image is going to go. And then just some straight lines that's where some text is going to go. So you're not actually putting any elements in yet, but you're working out where different things are going to go. And this is a really quick way to work out how you're piecing all the puzzle pieces together. When you've got all that content and you've got to work out where's different things going to go, this is a quick way of working out where things can go without getting yourself too overwhelmed with the actual design and the look of it. So you can try out different things, move things around, work out what's going to look better, what's going to flow nicely, and also keep in mind that goal, you know, where you want people to go. So how can you make sure that's all clear and that the site flows really well? And then once you've done that and you've decided exactly how everything's going to be placed, then we can dive into the fun bit and start designing your website. So what program do you use? How do you go about this? What things do you need to keep in mind when it comes to designing a site? First of all, you need to consider the sizing and also the fact that a lot of computers today have Retina display. Retina display means that your images, if they're at just normal size in terms of what you see on the screen, are going to look blurry, because what happens is the image needs to be twice the size, so then when it's shrunk down, it's going to look crystal clear. So I know that sounds a bit confusing, but basically you want to design your site 2 times the size of what it's finally going to be. So if the final width of your website is going to be 1,500 pixels wide, then you want to be designing your site at 3,000 pixels wide. And then all your images are going to be large enough so that when you put them on your website, that if someone's looking at your site in Retina display, it's going to look beautiful. Next thing you need to make sure you do is that you make it 72 dpi. Otherwise, your site is going to be slow loading. We don't want images that are too big that it causes your site to load too slowly. So make sure you design in 72 dpi. And also, when it comes to color, use RGB, because CMYK is for print only. So only use that for print. If you start using that for trying to do a website, when you upload your images, the colors are going to go weird and you're going to freak out and be like, what's happened? So make sure that when you start a new file for creating your design, that you use RGB. So when it comes to the program for creating your design, I personally like to use Illustrator at the moment. Before, I used to use Photoshop, but really you just need to use whatever you feel comfortable using. If it's something like Canva or any other kind of design design software, use something that you know how to use and you feel comfortable designing in, but be sure that it's something where you can have layers, because you need to be able to take apart all the layers and dissect all the images so that you can upload them to your site. So the main thing is to be sure that you've got layers, and that as you design, you make sure you're designing in layers so that you can pull out elements and put them on your website. So I hope this has made the whole process of designing your website a little bit less confusing. I know there is so much to it and so many things to consider, and I know I haven't got into the actual moving the design to the actual website and the whole coding thing, because that's a whole other ball game. But at least this should get you started so that you can start creating a design, and hopefully it feels a lot less overwhelming now. So good luck, and don't forget that if you have a creative business and you want more help with graphic design, web design, branding and creativity, then be sure to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.